All right, Ledesma, I'm going to shoot a little video today to show you the basics of Google Docs. So this year we're going to be using Google Docs for a lot of different things, and I want to teach you some of the basics and some of the main ideas about what it should look like when you're typing up an essay or a paragraph or a response, okay? So here we go. The first thing you want to do, of course, is sign into your Google Drive. Okay, and once you've done that, you can go down to New, and it's usually one of the first options right there. You open up a new Google Doc. All right, and once you have that open, you want to immediately title your Google Doc. Otherwise, you'll save a whole bunch of files in your Google Drive, and they'll all say untitled. And then it gets really confusing to figure out what is what. So the first thing you're going to do is title your Google Doc. All right, so I'm going to call this sample Google Doc for my class. All right, so now, okay, I am going to go down here and I am going to go ahead and type the same thing here. So I'm going to say sample Google Doc for my class, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and put my name on there because anytime you do work for school, you should always have your name on it. All right, now here's the next thing. Um, Google Docs defaults to 11-point font. You could leave it there. Most of the time, I prefer using a 12-point font or a 14-point font. What I don't want you to do is use anything smaller than the default, and I don't want you to use anything bigger than about 14. It just simply ends up being too big, right? So I don't want to read something in 24 or 32 font size, okay? The next thing you got to do is you can pick your font style, and a lot of you like to get real fancy with this, but here's the deal. Your font that you pick needs to be very easy to read, right? So the default is Arial. If you want to leave it there, that's fine. And there's lots of choices, but you don't want to pick something really kind of silly that makes it hard on the reader. So for example, you might pick something like this, and that's not a real good one. It just makes it harder to read the entire paper. So go ahead and make sure you pick a font that is easy to read. Don't spend too much time on your fonts because it's overall not that important. You could just leave it at the default font. Okay, so now the next thing you should know when you're typing a Google Doc is you basically always want to type it in black and white, right? You want to use black typing on a white piece of paper, right? So I know you can change the colors of it up here, but you don't do that. You might decide to do that for your title, and that's okay. But beyond that, for the text of your document, you're going to leave it in black and white. Okay. You can even make the title slightly bigger if you want to, using the font size changes. Just don't make the text of your document bigger. Okay. All right. So now the next thing to know is that with your title again, you can center it, but the text of your document needs to be justified to the left or aligned to the left right over here. So if you accidentally do this, you don't want to center your entire document when you're typing it unless it's for a very specific purpose. For most essays that you're going to write in class, you're going to align it to the left, okay? And then, of course, now that you're in, upper grade, you are going to be typing in paragraphs, right? So you want to make sure you are using good paragraph forms. A good paragraph starts with an indent using the tab key. So if you hit the tab key one time, not twice, just one time, it does a perfect indent every time. There are students who like to try to indent with the space bar. But the problem is it ends up not being a perfect indent every time. The tab key is for indenting your paragraphs. Now I'm going to start out with a basic sentence here for this sample essay, and I'm going to say, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. Fun fact, that is a sentence that is great for practicing your typing and keyboarding skills because it uses every letter of the alphabet. So that's a fun fact for you. Okay, now you'll notice when I got to the end of this sentence, I did what? I used punctuation, right? So there's a period at the end of that sentence. Additionally, after a sentence or after the punctuation, you need to add a space. Okay, so you need to have a space or two. When I was learning how to type, way back in the Stone Ages, we learned how to type on a typewriter, and the rule was always put 2 spaces after a period, 1 space after a comma. These days, people let you do either 1 or 2. I prefer 2, but you can choose what you want. You just need to have the space after the punctuation mark, not before. So please keep that in mind. So now we add our next sentence, all right? So we say the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. However, the dogs kept on chasing, or the dogs, how about the dogs decided to become less lazy and keep on, and start chasing him. Okay. Now, you'll notice here we used a comma, okay? Put a space after the punctuation mark, okay? And that's the idea, okay? The dogs were so lazy that the fox eventually got away. Okay. I am happy for the fox. Okay, now, here's the deal. I've now reached the end of my first paragraph, right? I don't have any more to say about this fox's exploits in getting away from the lazy dogs, but I do have a little more. I'm going to add some opinion now, and I'm going to start a new paragraph. So when you start a new paragraph, you need to hit the Enter key, right? And then I would suggest when you type, it makes it easier for the reader if you put a space between your paragraphs, okay? Once again, how do we indent? We use the Tab key 1 time, okay? So now you basically need to start your next paragraph. I have a few questions about this scene, okay? Why did the fox need to get away? Why would the dogs want to chase him? Okay, and how about should we be standing up for the rights of the fox? Okay, so now I've added a few questions here. Notice once again, I put a question mark now as my punctuation, and there are spaces after that. Please notice that each one of my sentences is capitalized, right? I want you to notice one more thing. Google Docs does a pretty good job of spell checking you, right? So if I were to spell the word lazy wrong up there, oh, Google Docs catches me and I can click on it and I can probably find the right word. Okay, but that does not excuse proofreading. You still must proofread your work when using Google Docs, and here's why. Take a look what happens here. Should we be standing up for they rights of the fox? If I do that, well, guess what? That word is spelled correctly. It's no longer underlined in red. Google Docs did catch that it's grammatically incorrect, but that is my point. You still need to proofread your work to make sure that typos aren't going to get you, right? What happens here if I put two O's after two, right? So again, I want you to remember to proofread your work, to check, look for any underlines, but also to actually reread every sentence that you type to make sure that it is worthy of turning it into your teacher, okay? Because this guy will not be happy if I get a document with a whole bunch of typos that shows that my student tried too hard to rely on their spell check from Google Docs, because I'm not grading Google Docs. I'm grading you. So make sure you do it right. And I think every teacher out there would probably agree with me. So those are the basics of Google Docs, right? That's basically how we type up papers in upper grade now. So I hope you learned a lot from this video, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch it all the way through. Thank you, and have a great day and a successful school year.